Real-Time 1960s presents Evening Report, a complete roundup of today's news with Joe Rubenstein.
Good evening. In Selma, Martin Luther King and thousands of others are arrested. In Washington, President Johnson stands firm on Vietnam. General Curtis LeMay steps down, Malcolm X speaks out, and Muhammad Ali takes a close look at Floyd Patterson in action. Those are the headlines. The details after this message.
Woman. Delicate, sensitive, inquisitive. She'll try anything for fastidious deodorant protection, roll-ons, creams, and now even a man's aerosol. Ooh, this aerosol's too harsh, too irritating. Is there a deodorant that can protect a woman without harshness? Yes, there's Gentle Mum. Protection without harshness in the familiar cream or in new Mum aerosol spray. Quick-drying, non-messy protection without harshness. So woman with normal but delicate skin, get protection without harshness. Mum, cream or new aerosol spray.
On Monday, Dr. Martin Luther King and nearly 800 other Negroes were arrested in Selma, Alabama, while protesting that state's voter registration requirements. About 500 of those arrested were students who stayed out of school and picketed the Dallas County Courthouse. Dr. King and 263 adults had been arrested earlier in the day on charges of parading without a permit. They were on their way to the courthouse to protest difficult literacy tests and slow registration procedures. Following his arrest, Dr. King declined to post the $200 bond required of non-resident defendants, and he remained in jail. On Wednesday, an additional 1,000 Negro school children were arrested in Selma and nearby Marion, to which Dr. King's campaign had spread. Yesterday, President Johnson threw his support behind the fight for Negro voting rights.
All Americans should be indignant when one American is denied the right to vote. The basic problem in Selma is the slow pace of voting registration for Negroes who are qualified to vote. We are using the tools of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 in an effort to secure their right to vote. One of those tools, of course, is legal action. One case of voting discrimination has already led to a trial which has just been concluded. We are now awaiting a decision in this case. I hope that all Americans will join with me in expressing their concern over the loss of any American's right to vote. I intend to see that right is secured for all of our citizens.
This afternoon, Dr. King posted bond and spoke with reporters who had gathered outside the jail.
Well, it was just another jail experience. We were there, as you know, from Monday until today. And, of course, things were fairly well as you can expect in jail. I think as a result of being there, and as a result of the creative witness of hundreds and even thousands of Negroes in this community, we have been able to bring this whole issue to the attention of the nation and I think to the conscience.
He said he decided to leave his jail cell because he realized new legislation was needed to cope with voter registration conditions, such as those in Dallas County. Dr. King was asked for his immediate plans.
Well, this drive, as you know, will cover the whole state of Alabama with particular emphasis on the Black Belt counties. Also in some of the larger cities, we will be having a mass meeting in Montgomery on Monday night. I think there is a need now for new legislation, a constitutional amendment to grapple with the real problems that we face in this area in Alabama and Mississippi and other areas of the South. On the basis of this, I'm seriously considering going to Washington to talk to President Johnson about this whole matter.
Yesterday, Malcolm X, the former black Muslim who now leads his own black nationalist movement, paid a visit to Selma. He came at the invitation of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and spoke with 300 young people at the Brown Chapel AME Church. He called on President Johnson to make a full investigation of the Ku Klux Klan, reminding his listeners that 97% of Negro voters cast their ballots for Johnson last November.
If the federal government does not find it within its power and ability to investigate a criminal organization such as the Klan, then you and I are within our right to wire Secretary General Uthar of the United Nations and charge the federal government in this country behind Lyndon B. Johnson with being derelict in its duty to protect the human rights of 22 million black people in this country. And in their failure to protect our human rights, they are violating the United Nations Charter, and they are not qualified to continue to sit in that international body and talk about what human rights should be done in other countries on this earth.
He closed his remarks with a prayer and a prediction.
I pray that God will bless you in everything that you do. I pray that you will grow intellectually so that you can understand the problems of the world and where you fit into in that world picture. And I pray that all the fear that has ever been in your heart will be taken out. And when you look at that man, if you know he's nothing but a coward, you won't fear him. If he wasn't a coward, he wouldn't gang up on you. They put on a sheet so you won't know who they are. That's a coward. No. The time will come when that sheet will be ripped off. If the federal government doesn't take it off, we'll take it off.
In Chicago Saturday, Mr. X harshly criticized his former mentor, Elijah Muhammad of the Nation of Islam, on Irv Kupcinet's radio program. During the interview, Mr. X alluded to sexual misbehavior and extramarital affairs that Mr. Muhammad had allegedly conducted.
I believed in Elijah Muhammad stronger than he believed in himself. I believed in his God more than he did. And I was not aware of this until I found he was confronted with a crisis in his own personal moral life, and he did not stand up as a man. Anybody can make a moral mistake, but when they have to lie about it and will be willing to see that murder is committed to cover up their mistake, not only are they not divine, they're not even a man. If a man sits as a judge and a woman is brought in front of him and charged with adultery, and the judge himself is the one with whom she committed adultery, but the judge stands up and berates the woman in order to make no one even suspect that he is the real criminal who was involved with the woman, and humiliates her and then sentences her into isolation, completely destroys her reputation with no kind of protection for her or of her whatsoever, and she takes it. She loves him so much and believes so strongly in his sense of justice so much, she allows herself to be projected almost as a prostitute. And that man permits this, then that's not a man. To have gotten weak for a woman is one thing. It's human and it's natural. But after getting weak and completely destroying her reputation, to do nothing whatsoever to protect her as a woman, then he's not a man. And to commit murder and to see followers line up to kill each other and to mutilate each other, then this is not a man. If the ability, the talent, the skill, the know-how that the black Muslim brothers have been trained into were used against organizations like the Ku Klux Klan or the White Citizens Council or the racist elements in this country, then I could somewhat go along with the present trend of their fighting each other too. But when all of their physical energy is expended only fighting each other, then I say something is wrong.
He was asked if there had been any attempts on his life due to his withdrawal from the Nation of Islam and his criticisms of Mr. Muhammad.
I've had several.
You have?
And just thanks to Allah, so far I've been successful. But I'm like this. I believe that when you're a black man born in this particular society, you are faced with certain dangers already. You get used to it. And plus, the stand that I took when I was in the black Muslim movement was uncompromising. I defended an indefensible position, I think, and he was that indefensible position. Anybody who defends an indefensible position as well as I did, they must have believed in it.
I'll have more news for you after this message.
The Duchess is entertaining at her cottage tonight. Just potluck. For a few old friends. Nothing special at all, really. Except for the cigarettes.
Permit me, Duchess.
Thank you, Pooksy. What is she smoking?
The Duchess?
Yes, what is it?
Galaxy.
Galaxy? Is that new? Galaxy is very new. It's the filter cigarette with charcoal granules for a dividend in flavor. Flavor in the blend from pedigreed tobacco. Flavor at the end on your side of the filter. And Galaxy has another dividend. Dividend coupons.
You save these coupons, Duchess?
Of course, Poopsie.
Whatever for?
Gifts. Free gifts. Oh, however do you suppose I furnish this place?
Start collecting dividend coupons with new Galaxy and with Alpine menthol cigarettes, too.
Here again, Joe Rubenstein.
At yesterday's press conference, President Johnson refused to consider any suggestion that the U.S. might be forced to withdraw from South Vietnam.
There has been no change in the position of this country in regard to our desire or our determination to help the people of Vietnam preserve their freedom. I frequently observe to the people of this country that our basic commitment to Vietnam was made in a statement 10 years ago by our president to the general effect that we would help the people of Vietnam help themselves. And our purpose there is to help the people of South Vietnam preserve their freedom.
One reporter, noting recent reports of a possible negotiated settlement to the war, asked Johnson what would happen if the U.S. were invited to leave Vietnam by the South Vietnamese government.
I would not anticipate that we would receive such an invitation. I believe that we will continue, as I said before, to do our very best to make our effort in Vietnam more efficient and more effective in helping the people of Vietnam to help themselves. I would not want to speculate on what might be if this situation happened or that situation happened. I would want to cross that bridge when I came to it, but I do not anticipate in crossing any such bridge as was indicated by the dispatch from Paris.
In Saigon today, a U.S. military spokesman disclosed that at least 2 companies of communist guerrillas had inflicted a costly defeat last week on a South Vietnamese government force 250 miles northeast of Saigon. The battle took place before a Viet Cong ceasefire went into effect over the Lunar New Year period. On Monday, President Johnson awarded a 4th Distinguished Service Medal to General Curtis LeMay, retiring Air Force Chief of Staff. The ceremony, in the East Room of the White House, marked the end of 35 years of service for the 58-year-old general, the last of the major World War II senior commanders to serve on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. During that war, General LeMay implemented an effective but controversial strategic bombing campaign in the Pacific Theater. As part of that campaign, on March 10, 1945, between 90 and 100,000 Japanese perished in a firebomb raid on Tokyo.
By his leadership and his imagination, this man of courage helped to shorten history's costliest war, and he helped to prevent mankind's final war with both the response of the Berlin airlift and the readiness of the Strategic Air Command. General LeMay, all 3 men today are in your debt.
After accepting the medal, General LeMay reflected on his long career.
Mrs. LeMay and I have enjoyed the privilege of serving in the Air Force for some 35 years. We've never regretted our decision to do this. And leaving after such a long time creates somewhat of an emotional problem. However, I don't have a particularly heavy one because I leave behind the best air staff that I have ever seen assembled and the best group of commanders in the field that can be possibly procured.
Sports, right after this.
For centuries, measles has disguised itself as a harmless childhood disease. But underneath lurks a killer responsible for the deaths of more American children than any other infectious disease. Measles usually does its dirty work with the help of a vicious gang. Pneumonia, the deadly childhood killer. And brain inflammation, the mind crippler. Today, your doctor is armed with a weapon that can stop this deadly disease in its tracks. Its name, measles vaccine.
Measles vaccine is safe, and it works. Protect your child from this potential killer and crippler with measles immunization now.
At Madison Square Garden Monday night, former heavyweight champion Floyd Patterson persevered through 12 brutal rounds to win a unanimous decision over George Chuvalo. Weighing 197 pounds compared with his 208-pound Canadian opponent, Patterson moved well, employing an effective jab and quick combinations, as Chuvalo stalked him and drove home hard body shots. Heavyweight champion Muhammad Ali, who had predicted Patterson would be knocked out by Chuvalo, assisted veteran broadcaster Don Dunphy in calling the fight. After the 7th round, Ali admitted his prediction had been wrong.
Well, Don, this is a real colorful fight. I know the fans are getting the money's worth. It's going longer, and it's not turning out like I thought it was. As I said earlier, and predicted that Chuvalo win by knockout, but it looks like he let me down. And if Floyd can keep up this pace and look as good as he's doing, I'm sure he will be a qualified challenger for my crown after I finish business with Sonny Liston. You're looking at Floyd now. I'm sure that he will win this fight, and it's really surprising me. I got to give him credit. He's a good fighter, and he's fighting hard.
Last month, Ali had invaded Patterson's training camp and called Floyd, quote, an Uncle Tom Negro, a white man's Negro, a yellow Negro, and a quitter, unquote. This verbal assault was a retaliatory measure, as Patterson had continued to call the champion Cassius Clay, his former name. After the fight on Monday, however, Ali had high praise for Patterson.
He is really a tough fighter. I must give him his credit. He fought a beautiful fight, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to go to training camp and get there early. Everybody's taking pictures. I know Floyd Patterson is happy. He's been down so much, and now he's back on top. And I'm sure the fans are surprised. Everybody got their money's worth, and I got my money's worth.
Jack, how do you feel about being a boxing commentator?
Well, this is rather tough, Don. I believe I'll stick to boxing. I don't like to talk so much. You have to talk too much when you're working on these things.
Ali's rematch with Liston, postponed last November due to Ali's emergency hernia surgery, has been tentatively rescheduled for the end of May at Boston Garden. Should the champion win that match, Patterson would be his next opponent. And that, for this evening, completes our look at the latest news on this Friday, February 5th, 1965. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day tomorrow.
This has been your Evening Report, a roundup of the latest news with Joe Rubenstein.